Podcast number 1. I got my brother, my best friend, my co-founder, Michael Garrett, here for the first episode. Thanks for being here, brother.
Stoked to be here, man. This is fun.
For important thing moving forward on the podcast is I really want to get everyone present to who the guest is to me. So, there's Michael Garrett, the entrepreneur, the inventor, the whiz at everything he does. And to me, you are one of the most consistent people I know, if not the most consistent person I know. You don't get too high. You don't get too low. Which is such a, I have learned from you as a strength as a leader and a creator. It's like people can depend on you and count on you, and you show up as you are consistently. And it's just it's been a real learning lesson for me to witness, and it's an incredible strength. And on top of that, you are one of the most naturally capable people in what you get into. Like when we go on these plunge tours and we just show up at these people's house. Like one thing I vividly remember, we show up to Kelly Starrett's house. This guy is the recovery guru. He has written the book on recovery and working out, and we're there at his house. And I get nervous immediately. Like Kelly picks up all his equipment and is doing these workouts. And I'm kind of like standoffish, like, I don't want to do it. I don't know how to do that. Like and your inclination is you pick up the hammer and you're doing it and you don't care how you look or who you are in that. And it's just like, I'm so impressed by that and amazed by that. And it's an incredible thing to witness. So that's who Michael Garrett is to me, plus many other things. But yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with me, man. It feels good.
Yeah.
So many things to even talk about on that. It's so funny you brought up the Kelly Starrett hammer thing. It's just, I never would have thought that was a moment that where that was what was going on for you.
That imprinted.
I was terrible at it, but it was just, Kelly's so easy to be with.
Absolutely.
He's the man.
Absolutely.
But the being the level, even keel is definitely something I've gotten before. And it's like everything in life. It's the gift and a curse, right? It's like your biggest strength is your biggest weakness, right? Like I have such an issue getting excited because I can't get too high. I can't get crazy expectations, but like you said, I also don't get too low or too worried. Like it's always, the truth is in the middle.
As your co-founder, it's something we've had to learn a lot about each other.
For sure. And
how we communicate. And I'm the one that come with the crazy excitement, like, oh my God, we talked to this person, we have this partnership. And your response always like, cool. Like and I, at the beginning, was kind of like I want the excitement. And I would take it personal. And, and then equally, I would bring forth quote unquote bad news. And you would just receive it like, cool. Like, right. What are we going to do?
That's the gift right there. It's like you could bring to me like some real bad news. And it's just like, okay, what are we going to do? What's the move?
So there's Michael Garrett, the entrepreneur, the guy, you've accomplished so many things. What I'm curious on is who Michael Garrett was pre-Reboot Float Cryo. Mm-hmm. What were you doing? Mm-hmm. Where was your life at that time?
Yeah, pre-Reboot, I was working at an entertainment law firm in Los Angeles, doing just shuffling papers and listening to podcasts. Did that for 3.5 years. Just to go back a little bit more, basically I went to school for engineering because I always loved to build stuff. And then you get to college and they're like, take chemistry and calculus, and it's like, that ain't building stuff, like right? So it's like my mom was like, oh, you should be an engineer. I was like, oh, that makes sense. You go to college for engineering, but then the system and the way it works, it's so far removed from the actual thing that you're going to be doing and what you actually like to do. So I got off that track and ended up going into finance. My dad got me an internship at a hedge fund and fell in love with the stock market. I have a propensity for taking risks. Obviously, I'm an entrepreneur. So just putting your bet on the line in the stock market was really intriguing. So I got obsessed, did that internship 3 times, thought I was going to go into finance, wanted to be a hedge fund manager, you know. And then I started interviewing at banks, and it was like the soul-sucking environment was so apparent. All the wind got taken out of my sails that I had to go start at a bank, start at the bottom because I couldn't get a job at the hedge fund. So I didn't even do it. I started working for my sister. That was brutal. She had a clothing company, so that was brutal. And then I found this job, the entertainment law firm, working for my roommate's aunt, who was the nicest woman of all time.
So you're out of college now.
Out of college, yeah. So I went to Penn State in engineering, moved to LA after college where the hedge fund was, did my last internship there, started interviewing at banks, and then pivoted and was like, okay, what the hell am I going to do now? And I was terrified to go down a path that just didn't feel good, you know? So I was just in LA, enjoying myself, you know, playing basketball and tennis. I had this I was getting a lot of half days at work or 4 days a week, like really easy job, but it was the vampire. So Duncan Trussell was talking about this concept at the time, and it just resonated so much to me that my job, there's vampire lore where you need to invite them into your home. They can't walk over your doorstep without you inviting them in, but once they come in, they suck all your energy. So I had this job, was this vampire I invited in.
What was the vampire in the job?
It was just so fucking boring. And it just was so easy. What was the vampire aspect is to leave that job and go get another job would have been terrifying and terrible. To go work in accounting or just all the other jobs, the normal jobs available to someone when they're in their mid-20s just sounded terrible, right? And so I was stuck. You know, and then the other option, I always wanted to start a business, but there was never the one that made sense or the timing. And how do you make that leap when you're paying rent in Los Angeles, you know, and you want to continue to have fun with your friends? It just seemed so hard. So I ended up telling my boss I was going to quit in 6 months. I had money saved up, and I decided to go to Thailand and Southeast Asia for 6 months and figure it out.
So I want to dive into that journey. What led to you wanting to quit your job? Was it a day that you just showed up and you were like, today's the day I quit my job? Or was it a death of a million?
It was honest. So what it was I went to Peru with my sister. We did ayahuasca together because I watched Aubrey Marcus's ayahuasca video like everybody else. Immediately went to the jungle with my sister, did ayahuasca, came back, did a float. And after I got out of the float tank, I told my sister, I want to build a float tank. I can build one of these. She said, cool. Do it in my garage in Riverside, which is an hour and a half away from where I was. So I didn't go out on the weekends and drink or do anything like that. I was driving an hour and a half on Saturday to go sleep on the floor in a house with no furniture and build a float tank like a weirdo. Right? So
probably the most alive you ever felt.
It was something, right? It was definitely out of the rut I was in, right? And so then I finished the float tank. So I had this really difficult project that there was no clear plans of how to do it. I forged it, I finished it, the float tank worked. So that alone was okay, I can think of something difficult and complex where I don't know the exact plan and get to the end goal. Bringing a guy from Home Depot with me to help build it, all random kind of stuff that was learning experiences, you know? So that was a big step. And then I went to Costa Rica for New Year's with a bunch of friends. And we went around and did our New Year's resolutions. And at that time, I had already read The 4-Hour Workweek and Vagabonding by Ralph Potts. And both of those combined are go live super cheap and make money on the internet, do the arbitrage, make US dollars in Thailand or whatever. And I had done graphic design courses. I'd make websites. I'd also made the float tank. So I was okay, I got options. I just need to get out there, get out from the bigger rut of even just America. All of my friends who are kind of doing their own thing, pulling you into just, hey, let's just go out and have fun. I needed to really shift. And because I think I always knew I could do something big and start something legit. but all of the options in the work environment, all those paths seemed like not mine.
So were you still at the hedge fund when this was happening?
No, I was at the law firm.
You were at the law firm.
Mm-hmm.
So you were still there. So you still had income, because I'm curious too, like how you afforded, like you took the risk. And I can relate, when I took the risk in my life, there's like, the big one for me was like, how am I going to pay for my life? Like, I'm going to make money. Like I still have to pay rent. I still have to do the things. And I did the stuff I had to do. But what did you do? Like you made that jump. Did you save up then to go to Thailand?
Saved up. My grandma was generous to give me some money that I had saved up. And then that was the idea, was I'm going to save up. My boss hooked me up when I left. She bought me a first class ticket to Thailand.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I had a lot of people in my sales rooting for me. And then that summer, went one way ticket to Thailand, and then that was an interesting journey. Traveling solo in a third world country is very psychedelic. Like you really learn what's going on in your own head, right? There's no crutches to lean on. There's no one and you got to just forge a path. So really quickly out there, I got to Koh Phangan, which is an amazing island, and found a really cool spot and met cool people, was having an amazing time. And there was this one party, and took some MDMA and some mushrooms, and had like this super powerful experience sitting by the rocks watching the waves crash. And it was just like one of the most powerful experiences I had in my life. And it was just so clear to me that I knew what I wanted to do. It was like, before it was like just covered with fear around, oh, maybe you'll be a graphic designer and make websites, live in Thailand. I was like, dude, sack up, move to San Francisco. We have a bunch of friends, and there's no like legit modern float spa, and build a float spa. Like that's what you should be doing. And so it was just like, fuck, like there's no turning back from this message.
So that was your declaration, commitment.
Yeah.
In that, was there anything you did to solidify that, or was it solidified in you? Did you like go tell people? Yeah. So one thing I'm thinking is like, we have these moments that it becomes real, and we get the inspiration and that it's happening. What made it real in the world to you?
Yeah, so something I learned in the Landmark education program, which is a big part of my like journey, was how you occur for other people is how you kind of show up in the world. So if you tell everyone that you're going to do something, and you have all of your friends going, hey, how's that thing going that you said you're going to do? Like, and they're like, wow, that's so awesome. You're doing that. Like, you're going to do it way more than just keeping it a secret. So I posted on Facebook that night.
Got it.
I'm moving to San Francisco and I'm starting a float center. I don't know how, I don't know when, but that's my path that I'm walking.
Did you wake up? I mean, what occurs in my mind is this image of, you have this epic night in Koh Phangan. You're embodied and feeling your future. It's clear, and MDMA, mushrooms. Did you wake up the next morning and go, oh fuck, what did I just do?
I processed everything that night. After I posted it, I had like a episode of just bawling, just like a baby, just like like crying out, like all of this fear, knowing it's like the future was coming at me like down a portal of like all this responsibility I was going to have to take on to accomplish this task. And my current state was like, I can't handle that responsibility, but it was also like shedding this fear. And it was like it was just all emotions encased at the same time. It's kind of wild that night. So I opened my laptop, I post on Facebook, and also had seen my cousin had emailed me that he just had a baby that night. So he shows me like a picture of his newborn baby, which like hit me as well. Like this new opening into the world. Yeah, it was trippy. It was a wild night. That has just changed my life forever,
Those nights that like when you really show up like that, like it's crazy what the universe or life or reality just opens up in your space. It's like, I think about like you quit your job. Like that was, you thought that through. You went to the jungle, you came back, you built the float tank. Like everyone got on your team. Your grandma helped you out, your boss. But like, it was just like, here we go. Like, people want to see the success. People want to get behind you. You have this night that you make this declaration. You're going through your own rebirth. You see a birth, your cousin, literally, it's just like, these moments that like I can so relate when I did my journey of quitting my job. It's like that's why we're buddies, because our journeys are very similar. But I'm just so like hearing the actual things that happened in the moment. That's magic.
It's magic. The universe will wink at you if you really throw your hat over a fence and there's like a void, and you're throwing it over for an intention, like a beautiful intention. Like you want to create something, you want to make the world a better place, your passion, you want to express your passion, you want to put this energy, this intelligence into the world, and you go, but I'm going to do it in the future. This is happening. You put it out there. And if it's scary, like you're going to see some magic happen. It's always happened every time I've done something like that.
So you have this experience. What happens next? I
mean, I kept traveling, went all over Southeast Asia, kind of was like working on a business plan. I tried to build float tanks in Cambodia because there was a cool meditation center there I was staying at, and the guy who was running it was super into float tanks, and I was like, oh, cool, like I'm gonna make float tanks for this guy. Rented a place in Siem Reap, Cambodia. Doing anything in Cambodia is very difficult, so that didn't happen. Nothing manifested, thank God. But at that time, I called my dad and said, hey, I'm building float tanks. And he's like, wow, interesting. He starts Googling like float tanks and found a True Rest float spa nearby his house, really close. And he's like, oh, interesting. Yeah, and he actually went to the True Rest and like looked inside, like he told me this on the phone. I was like, really? Like you went? I was like, wow, like cool. And he's like, yeah, people were in there, because he was like interested in like what I was doing. He wanted to make sure I wasn't getting into something really unsuccessful or weird, And so he gave me that good feedback. And then I pulled up their website and they had the float tanks for sale. So they had 3 like isopods for sale. And that was like the light bulb, like this door just opening, like just enough, man. Because I was like, how do I start this thing? There was still a fear bubble around like asking for the money, right? Opening a float center is like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I was in Cambodia going like, well, maybe I'll start a float center here. Like kind of copping out on my dream, because like the fear had still surrounded the seed capital. And I was just always afraid to ask my parents for money. Like, I don't know why. I was always afraid to ask my parents for like stuff. I had like shame around it, right? So I realized that, and I was like, well, this is the opening. Like, this is your only shot. Like, used float tanks nearby my dad. Like, okay, I need to go home. I need to put together a great business plan, present it to my dad, and include these float tanks in it. And I went home, did that, and I couldn't believe he said yes.
How did you, kind of a tangent, but building the business plan, like first business you've ever created, you've never run a company, done it. Like, what did you do to go build this business plan? Like, where did you learn about it? Did it take you a long time, or did you just get it done and then move forward?
It took a while, but I had nothing but time. I was like in Vietnam doing that. I learned so much at the hedge fund. I had this awesome mentor, Casey Borman, and yeah, he just taught me everything about like kind of the pluses and minuses of a business, like how much variable cost is in there. Well, a float tank center, not much. It's like, that was the cool part about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like once you understand how businesses work, they're all different depending on the industry. And a float tank center is like super cheap to run. Like I could literally run the whole thing myself. And if we only get like 4 or 5 floats a day, like we can at least pay our rent and I can get by. So that was part of the sell to like my dad, right? It's like, dude, to break even, like it's pretty easy here. And then here's the upside. it's limited upside, right? You're never going to scale one float center, but to just get to like, I was driving Lyft in San Francisco while we were building the float spa, and I would tell people about it. And I would tell people literally like, dude, I don't care if I work 80-hour weeks at this thing and just can live in San Francisco just to pay my way in San Francisco and work at this center. I'll be stoked because I'll be doing what I care about in the world, and I have created something and added to this amazing city of San Francisco. I was going up there a bunch. My friends lived there from LA, and I was always in love with the city, and I was like, what a dream to be a business owner in San Francisco. I mean, that's a cool fucking city, right? There's not a lot of chains. To be one of like in that group just felt like what an honor. So cool to be doing it in this float business too, like bringing consciousness to San Francisco, like dream come true.
I can so relate to the story of, I don't care if I did this 80 hours a week and I was the only person in here. That was the same exact thing, because I was floating at Float Matrix in San Francisco, and that's where my aha moment happened, where I was sitting in the waiting room, and this is before you came around. I was living in San Francisco before you had moved there. You were just probably moving there to start your journey, but the only place there. And I remember sitting in the waiting room, seeing the people come in and out. And I was like, I would just love to sit around these people. It was a very foreign world to me. And so I think it's a good hack in launching, like when you're building the company, is like, can you just do the lowest level piece or like the everyday position in the company? Will you be happy doing that? Like, and if that's a yes, then you truly probably love what you're getting into. It's not just about the dollar. It's not about, nothing wrong with that if that's your why. But it's a lot easier to build the why with I want to spread consciousness. I want to be in an environment that is like positive to me. Like I could just be like, you weren't even thinking, it sounds like, about like, I want to make so much money and I want to go build, this business that scales so large. It's like, no, your why was much different.
Yeah. I mean, working at a float center, I knew I wouldn't, if I worked at someone else's float center, even I wouldn't have liked it. I don't like folding towels and sitting at a front desk. Talking to people after and before floats is cool, but the why of this is my business that I've created that I'm adding to the world, I'm willing 100% to run this thing full time, because the why is, it's clear, like the why is so strong at that point, right? So taking the it's just like, I mean, lack of a better term, but the ownership. It was you taking the ownership of this facility. So you have this, you're back. Did you pitch your parents? And pitched my dad. Yep. Dad said yes. He gave us about a third of the money we needed. He thought that's all we needed because he lives in Arizona and doesn't understand San Francisco construction prices. But I'm just like, okay, sign a lease. First place I find, it was a total shithole, fucking rub and tug, Thai massage place, down 3 steps. But I was like, hey, no windows. We don't need windows. It's a float center. Perfect, I remember I signed that lease and I had my first nervous breakdown of my life. Literally on the sidewalk, like, I don't even know what I looked like, but a guy walking by was like, are you okay? Like, it's never happened to me. Literally a guy was like, are you okay? I was just like, holy shit, what have I done? This place is a shithole.
What did you feel? Was it like the burden of the responsibility now?
It was buyer's remorse. Like, what if I just fucked up in this place? Just something happened. Maybe I was feeling what was coming down in the future, because the build out was atrocious. There wasn't enough ceiling space to get, like, the HVAC was super difficult. We didn't know what the hell we were doing, And then we had to go like do so much. The build out took forever, but we ended up getting open. And
did you hire a GC, or did you just do it, sub the whole thing out?
We had a GC, but he was like, he didn't spec out the whole job at once. It was like very piecemeal. So we had to keep like adding on like change orders to it. So that was like super stressful.
Got it. So you get open, and I know the experience I had from the build out was the nightmare. And then getting open was almost like this, like I collapsed at the finish line when I started Capital Floats.
Yeah.
Was it? And I just kind of like was able to breathe for the first time. What was your experience like?
Yeah. I remember we had like a paint party. So I had a bunch of friends come and help paint. That was super cool. And then once we opened, like the first couple people were like excited to come and had the best experiences. I mean, this woman must have like shed like trauma or something in the tank and was just like almost crying, was like thanking me so much, left this super long review on Yelp, and so many experiences like that out the gate that were just like so made all the 7 months of build out like so worth it. It was incredible. And we were doing good enough that it was like cash flow positive immediately. And yeah, it was amazing.
What would be the top things that from what you learned in that first journey that you would tell yourself prior to starting the company, of lessons that you picked up along that way?
It was like, I didn't talk to enough people, like talk to other float center owners, or I just ask for help, ask more friends from help. I finally, like the paint party was a great, like I kind of figured out, I can help, people can come help. My buddy's girlfriend helped do the interior design. So there were a couple wins there, but like I could have leaned into that more. So it's just like have more conversations. I think I tend to like go inner and try to like think my way through it myself. So that's for me is always like just get out there and talk to people and ask questions and like network, Yeah.
There's a vulnerability to that. I think as any entrepreneur, it's like we want to be the people to go build it. I'm the builder. It's my choice. I pull full responsibility. I'm in and that can, sometimes there's no discernment to say that means bringing people into my vision and having conversations and asking for help.
People want to help you.
Very true.
And that's what I learned at the end was like, just ask, hey, can you help with this? Like a lot of people, if they see you're up to something, they'll absolutely help.
That's the difference. I think when you're committed to something that matters to you or whoever that is, people want to help that.
Yeah.
It's a difference when you're just asking for help because you're just not taking responsibility and like going towards something and you're kind of pawning it off. And totally. that's a big difference. And I think in my head, sometimes that's who I think I'm being, but the times that I really am committed, it's like truly people are just wanting to help me.
Yeah.
And I like just need to turn and say, hey, come on in. Like join, and I totally relate to that, and like growing through my entrepreneur journey of like asking for help and bringing people in. Totally get that. So curious, and I don't even know this, so I want to hear this. You've invented the Plunge, you built a float tank like that. You're hands-on, you're a builder, like you engineer. Was that an identity and a thing that you had since you were a child, or did you develop that?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like stuff like that. You're so close to who you are that you don't realize you're different than other people sometimes. At least I don't. Like, in high school, I was like building computers from scratch. I had like an all clear, like acrylic computer I put together, and I always played with Legos when I was a kid. But that's all normal shit. And I don't know. I built websites. I played around in Photoshop. I don't know. It's hard for me to like see myself sometimes. You don't realize that you're like, not everyone I just took everything apart when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And like, as you get old, I don't think I realized until like my mid 20s that like, not everyone does that. Yeah.
Your skills, your strengths are very like, they're so natural that they don't even like, you don't even recognize them. It's like, I totally hear that. It's like, it's actually taken me more time to understand my strengths than my weaknesses. Like I'm very clear on what I'm weak at. And it's like, I still have questions into like, what am I actually good at? And it's because it's happening. And I, luckily have good people around me like Ryan, lean into this. This is something that's natural for you.
Right.
But I find it difficult to even know that's a more challenging process for me.
Yeah. I think for most people probably, right? You're just so used to it, and we're so hard on ourselves that you just don't see it. So, I'm not sure what the process is to figure that out. It's like ask people, what am I good at? Like,
totally.
What do you think I'm good at? You might be surprised what you get.
That's been, I mean, I learned that through Landmark of just like really, getting how you occur to other people and asking those questions.
Right.
So jumping into Plunge, we're here now, we're 15 months into this journey. It's been a wild ride. We build cold plunges, ship them all over the world. We do it. You're about to be a father. By the time this airs, you probably will be actually have your daughter here in the flesh. What are the things that are really challenging you right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's the constant thing I struggle with is like I respond really well to exercise and fitness, but I struggle to like find the groove in terms of like we were talking about before the podcast. Like I'm thinking about finally getting into jiu-jitsu. If I find a Gracie gym that'll work, right? Because it has the group component. I'm really bad at doing fitness by myself, and I've had stretches when I lived in LA. Me and my buddy Sam would play tennis every week. We played basketball every week because I had a person to go with and we would do it. And then in SF, I was doing rock climbing. And so like 3 times a week, I'm like rock climbing with, Gabe. And then right now, I just don't have that. And when your physical fitness is out of alignment, like it just impacts so much. But that's really like the core thing that I'm not able to solve right now. Like short term, I was doing bouldering by myself, but it just, I don't know, it's all cold right now. They don't heat the fucking bouldering gym. So that's the thing. I'm hoping like jiu-jitsu solves it, but yeah, I mean, when you're not working out enough, it's like you're just kind of sluggish and everything is just lesser. You know what I mean? So that's the one.
Which is interesting for you because it's like you are one that naturally just kind of does things on your own. You're like a self-starter. Like you at Plunge, I can always count on Mike doing his things.
Yeah.
And the exercise sounds like a flip to that.
I get obsessed with things and I dive head first and go balls deep on things. But sometimes they're not like what I would choose if it were my highest self. For instance, I got really into disc golf. So me and Michael Angel go disc golfing a few times. I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I start watching it on YouTube. I know all the players. I all of a sudden have a disc golf backpack and a cart and I have 25 discs and I'm going all the time. But it's like, I'm not getting enough exercise from the disc golf, right? And then randomly I get into bowling. I buy a bowling ball and I'm like, I've gone to the bowling alley by myself. You can go unlimited bowling in Sacramento at Country Club Bowling, $31. And I'll go bowling solo, but I'm like, this isn't the perfect, like I love bowling. It'll be a part of my life. I want to get into a league.
You have a bowler spirit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I totally see that.
So I've gotten obsessed with things. I'm obsessed with crypto right now. It's so crazy how much I know about crypto that I didn't know 2 months ago. But these are all obsessions that like aren't the perfect one. Like when I was doing rock climbing with friends, that's the perfect obsession, right? Because you're present, you're doing some cardio, you're doing some aerobic or anaerobic fitness, you're chatting it up, you got a community. I feel so relaxed in the gym. It's fantastic. It checks so many boxes. But then I get obsessed with like, bowling, and it's like, this is cool. I like this, but it's like it's not checking all the boxes.
What? I would be interested to hear if you have a process, because you do get obsessed and you go all into stuff.
Yeah.
And for context here, for who's listening, it's like Mike gets into chess. And he's the most casual guy that says, I'm into chess. And then it's like all of a sudden we're flying somewhere. Mike, all he's doing is chess. It's like he's into all these YouTube channels. I mean, it's deep. He's deep into chess. He knows, he's reading every book on it. And it's like, oh, you're into chess. Like So what is, when you get into something, break down like how you go about getting better at it.
I mean, right now it's just YouTube, man. YouTube is the ultimate. Just searching something, you watch these YouTube creators are posting content every day, and you just go, oh, this guy's been making YouTubes for a year, and he has courses, and I can go crush all this stuff and like learn chess openings. Then you can play the computer in chess, and then you can play other people in chess, and you get into the rankings. And
so you just, I guess I want to go deeper, like how you learn. You just watch a video and now you retain it, or do you watch the video and play a game at the same time? Do you take notes? Like, how do you break down? What's your learning process?
I just crush information. I'm just like an information black hole. Like I'm just like, I'm in the sauna, like I'm just staring at YouTube, or it's not that organized. It's just like whatever I feel like I'm missing that I don't know. It's just like I'm craving I'm sensing that there's something I don't know, and I just start searching it on YouTube, and I just watch the YouTube. For crypto, for instance, it's like, dude, I'll watch it. I was watching videos like a month ago. I don't understand what they're talking about, but I just let it wash over me. Then I watch another video. And then the next time you hear them talking about these things and all these terms like DeFi, I didn't even know really what DeFi was, or all the different permutations of it. And then a couple weeks later you hear the same kind of conversation, and now you get it just because you've heard the words enough ways, and you've browsed around the sites, and you've invested a few $100s in there, and you've played with it. I get in and I just let the information wash over me. Probably don't understand it, but I know something's sinking in. Mm-hmm. And then I try to go play with it. You know what I mean? And then I don't know, you just rinse and repeat, and just like, I'm a fiend, and I'm just like listening to podcasts. And I remember listening to Bankless podcast when I first pulled it up. I'm like, this is all nonsense. I understand what the hell is an L2? What the hell is a roll up? What is ZK? All these fucking terms. And they say it like you're supposed to know. Then a month later, I know everything. I know exactly what they're talking about.
I mean, what I'm hearing is you're really good at getting on the court quick. It's like you watch the video, you're in crypto. It's like, cool, I watch crypto, I'm in. I threw some money in. I'm playing, I'm mm-hmm. in the forum, I'm in the chat, you're calling my friend, you're talking to whoever you can talk to, like you're mm-hmm. playing the game. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I see that with, pickleball. We play pickleball. It's mm-hmm. like you're watching the tape, you're practicing new moves when we get together. Yeah. It's like, I think that's a really good, it's something everyone can take of like, you're going to learn so much quicker just by getting into it than thinking it through.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to just do it. Mm-hmm. Get your hands dirty.
Yeah. Cool. A couple rapid fire questions I want to jump into here. What is something that Michael Garrett believes that is not commonly accepted?
Not commonly accepted. I don't know if this is or isn't commonly accepted, but I'm just thinking about like my kind of operating system, like zoomed out, that I think is like the basic key to kind of the magic that we were talking about earlier. I really have saw in Peru my first time, and I've seen it over and over and over, and in other people, is the magic key to kind of everything is belief. Because you can't fake belief, right? You can try to fake it till you make it and all that, but at some point, there's levels to it, and if you truly believe in something, like, I just think that's the magic key to so many things. And that maybe that is getting more commonly accepted. This is the placebo effect, right? I mean, this is trackable. Like, people think that if they believe that they're getting medicine, they feel better. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, yeah, maybe I don't know if this is commonly accepted or not, but like Joe Dispenza, You Are the Placebo, all this stuff, if you want to read about it. What's cool about it is there's science. It's measurable, right? It's amazing. Like the fact that we have to have double-blind placebo studies because this belief thing will fuck up your study if the people actually believe they're getting the medicine. That's insane. So you can use that to your advantage if you're able to get to the belief, right? You can't just write it down and go, yeah, I believe I'm going to make $1 million next year. But how do you get to the spot where you do actually believe that?
Do you have a process that you've discovered to get yourself to belief?
I think a methodology that can be used, that I've used, is to really get in the space of what it feels like to have the thing or be in the space of whatever it is. What does it feel like to whatever? Oh, cool. Okay, I feel, okay, interesting. I'm a father. What does that feel like? Holy shit, that's interesting. And like really feel that and then believe it. You got to just take that leap.
Yeah, I mean, that is Dr. Joe Dispenza, and what he talks about is like you can't truly receive it until you've like embodied it and you've actually felt it. And, you know, it definitely goes into that. It's that threshold of magic, woo woo to science and to like like you're really changing the chemical response in your body. And in turn, is that attracting? Is that pulling that thing in? Is that now you're taking the steps? Your perception, your lens, your subconscious is now seeing it a little more clearly, and you know it's all right. I totally get that. I'm fascinated. I think that's the frontier of how do we get to belief quicker, and embodiment quicker. And it's not just a belief into a belief in a political system or a belief in an ideology, but it's like a belief into like who we're becoming. And I think that's the magic.
Because we're all living in our own universe. Like we share the meat space, we can talk about things, but truly it's like to really even connect is like magical because we're kind of all in our own world. And you've seen these people like Steve Jobs where Steve Jobs had what they call the reality distortion field. So you got around him and he would tell you, oh, we're going to do that in 6 months. And nothing's been created around it. And all of a sudden everyone around, somehow their lens is now, okay, it's like the 4-minute mile. Like once the guy does it, now your lens is like, oh, that's possible. And like, it's just your lens shapes so much of how the world occurs to you, and these little things just start snowballing.
You've brought it up a few times throughout, and obviously I know it really, really well with you, but like psychedelics is a huge part of your life. Was that always something that you were curious about? What was your first experience? How did you find this tool? This true game-changing, transformative, empowering tool.
Yeah, I mean, for so long, it was just, I think when I was younger, like everyone else, it's like all those things were, I mean, even like acid, that sounded like the worst thing you'd want to put in your body. And they're illegal, like super illegal. And then you get to college, and then sophomore year, you kind of learn like, oh, this person took mushrooms, blah, blah, blah. They had this experience. You start hearing different stories than that was like the dare version of it. And it became interesting, I think, hearing maybe like I had heard Duncan Trussell talk about Ram Dass's, experience from taking LSD and mushrooms to saying, oh, this is the map of consciousness, like really positive things. He got really into meditation afterwards. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. I'm super interested. I want to try it. So yeah, did some mushrooms with friends when I was a sophomore in college, and was, the most interesting experience of my life to that point for sure. And it was just like this kind of schism between like, oh, like you can't trust anything in terms of what society is saying about things anymore, because this thing is the most useful tool for the mind that exists. And on the other side is society saying it's bad and illegal. So, I mean, it's just like everything has been shattered. So you need to completely pave your own path of belief and try things yourself, because you can't trust anything in modern culture. And so yeah, I did psychedelics a few times in college and then in my early 20s as well. And yeah, it's just been an incredible tool. And then ayahuasca was the big, huge breakthrough experience after I did. Mentioned landmark education in this a couple times in this podcast, which really gave me like this clear scaffolding and language around how your brain works, how the mind works, and allowed me to, when I went and did psychedelics, to really put the pieces together. It really gave clarity.
Mm-hmm. I first time I drank ayahuasca, I didn't have a framework of landmark. Mm-hmm. And landmark, for anyone that doesn't know, it's just I call it human school. It's just a framework for our mind to really understand like why we process certain things. I mean, we all get different things out of it, but that's how I took it, of like really kind of understanding my mechanisms. And I could totally attest, the first time I drank ayahuasca, it was chaos. And there was no navigation towards it whatsoever. I was almost a victim of the space. Mm-hmm. And after post landmark, it was like true frameworks into like I was a participant now, processing and moving, for lack of a better, still a roller coaster ride and all the things, but yeah, very much
you're in the driver's seat more, and you're okay to understand that you can create yourself
totally
in that space.
That I couldn't thing with psychedelics. I always like, there's so much that happens that is so beyond my ability to comprehend. And sometimes I could get stuck in the psychedelic space while it's happening and get attached and fixated on things that I don't understand. Mm-hmm. And what I'm realizing, like, especially post landmark and through my time, is like, it's more of just the ride down the river. Get back on the raft. Like, you don't have to let everything stick and become the most large meaning thing, and just keep rolling through it. And so I totally attest to landmark of like really giving that framework into working with psychedelics for any of those journeyers out there that are looking to add to the tool belt.
Yeah, and the combination of like doing this, obviously you need integration with psychedelics, is a big one. And for me, it was like I needed to put it where the rubber meets the road and have a project. So coming up with something after the psychedelic experience was huge for me, because otherwise I would get sucked into old patterns. So that was
that the float tank?
Yeah.
Got it.
Exactly.
So what was tell me about the plunge, because you invented that. Like, what was there some magical psychedelic experience that led into plunge, or what?
Plunge was, an interesting one. I had so much time because of the lockdown, and it was just wild that no one really had an affordable plunge or, $5,000 plunge. And I wanted one for myself. I didn't start with, I want to create, this XYZ big company and whatever. It was just literally, I think my big thing I'd like to impart to like people who are looking for what I can provide in terms of what's helped me is like, just one step at a time. Like, don't look, you can't walk to the top of the mountain, like staring at the top of the mountain. You're going to trip and fall. You need to take one step at a time. So it's like, okay, cool. Like cold plunging is a thing. Great. Like, let me take the one step, which is like build one cold plunge. So me and my dad built some prototypes, and then at home, I ended up finding the tubs we use now and started building cold plunges. Was playing around. And at one point, early on when I just was going to my dad's, I told Iris, I am not starting a cold plunge company unless I do it with a co-founder, because that was the big thing with Reboot, is doing it alone was so lonely. And so, once we had a good prototype, you agreed to come on board, and that's the magic of Plunge, I think, is our dynamic and our ability to kind of like hold space for each other and make it fun.
Let's dive into that a little, like co-founders. I think that's such a important space for any entrepreneur that's going out there. Like, what are the most important you were clear you wanted a co-founder because you did not want to go on the journey solo. You had done the founding by yourself. What were some of the key things that you were looking for in a co-founder when you were setting out?
I mean, I don't know where I would have gone if you wouldn't have came on board. I just knew I needed someone I trusted who could, honestly, I don't even know, man. It was like, you made so much sense. You had worked with Juan and you guys had a good kind of co-founder thing. So I know you kind of had some co-founder experience. I hadn't thought it through that much, man. I just knew I needed somebody to ride along in the journey and like throw ideas at and hear their ideas. And it just, when you travel with someone, I'm the most amazing traveler, I feel like, when I have someone else. And it's like, I can tell when you kind of have an idea that's not perfect and I can kind of like massage. Totally. Or if I throw out an idea, sometimes I have ideas that suck, but I don't know they suck. And sometimes if people are honest enough with me, have a good relationship, they'll be like, nah, let's do this. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And like together you can just have such a better trajectory, but it can also end in divorce and flames. So it's tricky. I mean, the relationship has to be founded in, I think, just trust and faith and respect is the major components, right?
And it's like, I mean, you and I had that relationship prior. We had done some projects together. We had, had psychedelic journeys together. Like we had been in deep, vulnerable spaces together and seen how each other works. So I think we had a leg up. I mean, I look at the co-founder and the thing that we've learned along the way is like, you're picking me up on the days that I can't keep going. And Plunge wouldn't be a company if I didn't have you.
For sure, likewise.
And I think that's the key of the co-founder. It's like, I look back at Cat Floats and I'm like, how did I endured that. I endured that to get open, but it was not a pleasant experience. It was my hero's journey. It was truly like I went through the dark night of the soul and came out, and it was like something I don't think I'll ever go through again. And I don't put it on anyone. I would never want anyone to go through that again. It was so lonely and difficult. And I look back at the co-founder, and it's like, that is the joy of it, is like truly being able to have days that I just can't keep going, and you carry us.
It makes total sense, right? This is why, people have partners in life, and people had tribes always. Like, we're meant to do things with other people. For a human being to just forge something alone, like, why would a human ever do that? Were you banished from the tribe and you're trying to find your way back? Like, it's a strange experience. That's not what we're meant to do.
I think the key to it is, I mean, you and I have very different skill sets, so I feel like we can go a lot farther into what our bandwidth is capable. But building the trust and communication for anybody setting out with co-founders is like, that has to be rock solid. And if that's faulty, things can get squirrely really quick into people's perspectives, into the decisions of where the company wants to go, into just white lies that can take place and little dishonesties and, resentment that builds up. It's a true partnership. And I think I'm super grateful for our dynamic that's just like a rock solid piece that we've never really had to work through, and get right. It's like, which I think
we may have to at some point. We'll see, totally. Obviously, but we will be able to get there. It'll be easy, totally. If it gets off course. I think thinking about that moment when you came on board, I didn't know what I was looking for exactly in a co-founder, but I knew in you what I was always impressed by with what you were doing at Cap Floats was your employees, and like what I would hear about your team meetings. Like, people loved working for you. You would have people work at your company you never even like put up an ad to hire anybody. I mean, that's fucking insane, dude. Right? Like, your customers would want to work for you and then they'd stay for years. And then your income literally increased every single year. Like, it wasn't like my trajectory was different. Like, we came out of the box, like, insane revenue. And then we had to like kind of adjust because we had like Steph Curry come through. But it was like, I was so impressed. You would just like hit so many singles and doubles with like partnerships. and create like these long-term connections. So that was just a piece that I knew you could bring on board. Like if you're getting up to bat every time and getting a double, and I'm striking out 3 out of 4 times, but the 4th time I'm hitting a grand slam, like we're good. Like we got the grand slam. I'll hit a couple of those. You keep getting on base, driving in runs. Like we got it all, right?
That is very much the dynamic of. I mean, you hit a lot of. I think you're a singles doubles guy too. Your consistency is incredible. But yeah, I think that from a co-founder perspective is. Well, first I appreciate that and thank you for. But I mean, and for me to come on. I mean, it took me a second to join. Like I saw your consistency over the time you were building the product, and that's when it hit me. Like, because this was so outside of my wheelhouse of being able to build a Plunge. Like I wasn't gonna be the product guy.
Right.
Like, but to see you making the iterations that you did over time was so mind blowing to me. That built the confidence of like, oh, this could be something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. Winding it down here. You're going to be a father. You're Plunge 15 months in, 2022. What should people look out for you in the projects you're going to be working on this year?
With Plunge?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And personal.
Personally?
Personal. Plunge and like your life this next year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know, dude. Having a kid. I'm trying to, carve out a lot of time to spend with my daughter and make sure I'm just like soaking up this experience because it's going to go by so fast. We don't really have plans to have more than one. So that's just the priority. I think with Plunge, it's we're working on sauna projects. Super excited to get the sauna rolled out, XL tub, just constantly making the product better and better any way we can. So those are just the constants. I mean, the product's been great since day one, honestly. Like all those first people who got them, like been very relieved and proud that they've been working great. And like in a couple years, the product will probably be unrecognizable because I'm obsessed with improving it, like in every way possible, like looks, functionality, technology, integrating with an app, your phone, you name it. Like we're gonna figure out, everything. That's what I'm addicted to is like improving the product. And, I would find it hard to believe that someone's going to have a better product because if they come out with something better, like I'm going to immediately like have a fire into my ass to like top them, like just out of like, cool. Like let's like that 4-minute mile, like, oh, that can be done. Mm-hmm. Sweet. Like time to like get back to the drawing board, like that's what's cool about this company. And that's what I was so excited about with it because Reboot, to scale a float spa, you have to go borrow a bunch of money or whatever and open it up. And then that one's limited. And to be able to have a company that can really morph and grow and it's like unlimited, that's a really cool feeling. Like what this brand's going to be in terms of who we're going to connect with and shoot videos with over the next year. We're doing a bunch of videos with, Shervine and the Gracies next week. I mean, those are going to be a blast. Like all that stuff I'm so amped for. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be finally at a different spot of like actual team that like we can build with as opposed to just kind of chasing the next thing that we have to do. There's a little more stability in the company itself and get to really go into some creativity.
I think one of the things I'm most proud of is us hiring Eric, our VP of Ops. He's running the whole facility. That's a trippy experience. Like, it's one of those like seminal moments in the history of my life in this company. It's not something that was in my comfort zone. That's not creating a product. You know what I mean? That's not my nature to go pluck some guy who's been working at a international shipping company making really good money with bonuses and stuff, and he's got everything dialed at his company and he's happy, and we go pluck that guy because I've worked with him, and I'm like, you know what, the only way to hire someone to know that they're going to be good is to have worked with them. And I worked with him on a more vendor side, but I worked with him, and so like I had told people that in the last year before that, right? Like, hiring so hard. You do an interview, you don't know, but if you work with someone, then you finally know. And then it was just like hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, this guy, I know he's gonna be the man.
He's been one into the lesson for me of, a big shout out to how I built the podcast, because I would listen to that all the time. It was like open source of how to build a business. You just get, but it was always the key thing was hire people that are smarter than you. And it sounds great until you're actually in the meeting and the guy is smarter than you. And for me, it's insecure. It's like, I don't know, like, okay, cool. I really have to get honest that you are a lot better than me in a lot of these things. And Eric was totally to that. I think we really, it was that time that we had to kind of be like, we're handing over a lot of this to this guy to take the charge. And yeah, I'm really trying for us to move forward and to like hire people smarter than us.
Yeah, 100%.
And not be the end all to be all of the answers and the direction that we want to go, and really get other people.
Well, it's freaking, when you're growing a company, you constantly have to like take these leaps. And it's like, you got to hire for where you're going, not where you are. And it's like, are we going to get there? I don't know. And it's like, you got to just jump constantly, be leaping over the fence.
That is the piece with the co-founder. I mean, the moments that I look at is like Aubrey Marcus. It's like, that was a moment where like, let's ship him a unit. We big health and wellness influencer. We were building out of the garage. Like, let's go for it. Ship him a unit, kind of takes off our kind of visibility of the company. The moment we moved into our, we were in a 3,000 square foot warehouse space, this huge one that we had no business moving into in that moment. But you saw the future and said, cool.
Saw it. I peeked in that window of that building and I said, man, one day maybe, look at this, Ryan. And you were like, bro, we got to move in here like now. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah.
So, all right. It's like having that co-founder to do it. And then like an Eric situation is like, we hired way outside of where we currently were, but it's like, we are going here. And so that's been another, which is the hardest skill to actually even discern where we're going. But awesome, man. Well, appreciate you coming on, sharing your story into, what you've built, what you've created. It's truly inspiring as your friend, as your colleague. Thanks for sharing for everyone here, and look forward to having you back on in the future.
This is a blast. Thanks, man.
Awesome, brother. Cheers.